at lovedreamingpeach.com.
Sweet peaches. Let's see if I should turn this on or not. It's again late. It's 11:51 p.m. Tuesday, September 2nd. Do I want that on? That's so freaking bright. That's so dark. Turn that on. Now I look more like kind of washed out. My freaking chair arm literally broke. This chair's not even that old. Can't even see it. But, well, whatever. You can't see it, but it broke. Probably because I'm always going like this, but it's supposed to hold it. The screw. The screw broke. Look at that. Fucking screwed with a screw like that. My God. Anyway, let's try this again. I'm trying to get like a better view so it's not like under my neck. I always get like, anyway. Hi. How are you? I just finished working on what I was working on for my client that I really put off most of the day because I was busy watching Adelson. Not Adelson. I got it stuck in my brain because I do have a renewed surge of like desire and hope that this fucking bitch will get arrested, this murderer. And, you know, I do believe, let me see what's over there. My soup. Ah, so I made some notes. I do believe that Donna will be found guilty. I don't think there's any chance. Hello, but I could be wrong. I was fucking wrong about Cameron Reed, even though I was aware that the chats in all the streams, except for just like 2 or 3, it seemed, were very convinced that Karen was going to walk free, and that's what she did. So, in my opinion, Karen Reed got away with murdering John O'Keefe. I think it was absolutely second-degree murder. But she's walking free, and she's probably going to make millions off of movies and books and shows and God knows what. So, killed over bacon. Dan Markel was killed so Wendy could eat bacon. Well, it wasn't just for that. Why was he killed? He was killed because she didn't want to be in Tallahassee. She wanted to be in Miami. He would not allow her to do that. We don't know if she ever said to him, what if we give you $1 million? She said that she wasn't going to say it, and she said that she never offered him, but he's dead. So we don't know, because maybe she said it as a joke. Maybe she posted to him as a joke just to see, you know how she likes those jokes. Let's see if he'll take it as a joke, if he'll be like, no. So maybe she said, what if we just give you $1 million? We'll give you $1 million. You can fly here. You know, I think that Wendy and Donna were way, way, way downplaying Dan's life in Tallahassee. You know, making it seem like he only teaches 2 days a week. So what does he even need to be there for? He can live down in Miami and then, you know, take a flight twice a week. Because, you know, that's not exhausting. So now these are prices and times for like this week. Okay, let's take a look. So they thought, no biggie, he can just fly to work twice a week. Okay, so it's September 2nd. So let's go to September 2nd, right? Well, okay, so if you want to fly nonstop, if I wanted to fly today, well, tomorrow, Wednesday, September 2nd, from Miami to Tallahassee, American is an hour and a half nonstop, $523. Delta, 4 hours and 6 minutes with a connection, $621. Okay, so if you get the nonstop flight, it could be an hour and a half, but that's, you know, probably plus another hour and a half or two getting to the airport and then to your office. And then are you going to fly home the same day? Are you going to have an apartment? Are you going to have a hotel? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to fly home? Are you going to fly 4 times in a week? Like, what? So, you know, I don't think it was a reasonable expectation or ask. I feel that it was incredibly narcissistic and entitled of that family to think that he would do that. And maybe Wendy never asked him. Maybe she was like, there ain't no fucking way he's going to do that. You know what? It'd be cheaper to kill that motherfucker. Cheaper to get a TV than it is to get a hitman. But it's cheaper to get a hitman than it is to, here we go, what's the list? I didn't write everything down, but you've got the fact that she wanted to move 8 hours away, okay, by car. She wanted to be by her parents because she wanted that free babysitting. It seems to me that Wendy was a bit exasperated by her parents and her brother. However, she was perfectly okay and glad to use their weird, obsessive, enmeshed way of being with her to get them to do what she wanted, which was Dan dead. That's what I truly believe. I absolutely believe that she was the catalyst. She was the instigator. She was the head of the pyramid. She was the mastermind. She was the ultimate beneficiary. Okay? Here, now let's see. I wrote some notes. Pretended door key. Okay. So when I was listening to Judy, and Judy, which is a legal focus, she had 2 guests, Dawn and somebody, Joe. I think Joe is definitely an attorney. I'm not sure if Dawn is an attorney as well. Okay, and somebody had pointed out that the last date with Jeff and Wendy, where they went to that weird, awkward yoga, there was this thing where Wendy said that she locked herself out of the house. So Jeff was supposed to go to the house, and when he got there, she was like, oh, I've locked myself out. Or maybe she told him over the phone. I don't know exactly. I don't remember the exact details. If he got there and she was like, oh, no, I locked myself out. Or if she told him over the phone she locked herself out and was like, come over, spend the day with me. But then the point is that he didn't go into the house. And the thought is that she was packing. He did mention in his testimony last week or the week before in Donna's trial in August of 2025 that there were many, many pictures like the kids had drawn and stuff, which was on the wall in that house that she was renting. And there was a photo that the prosecution had showed with the boys sitting at a table, their faces blurred out, with a dozen kids' drawings / paintings, whatever, on the wall. And Jeff Lacasse testified that like 2 weeks before the murder, he observed her taking them down. And he thought that that was odd. Someone else claimed in a comment, so this is unverified, I don't know if it's true. Someone else claimed that she gave away some of the boys' clothes the day before the murder. Something that I did see. So I was looking because somebody said in a comment, Mia, somebody who was in Judy's chat, and then I saw Mia had been in, I think, Lawyer Lee's chat, and she had made a comment that somewhere in Wendy's police interview on the day that Dan was shot, July 18th, 2024, that I think it was the victim advocate who said we don't know if he's dead yet, and that Wendy responded, well, that would be a game changer. However, Mentor Lawyer, Deep Dive True Crime channel on YouTube, he has the full 5-hour, it's almost a 6-hour interview video, and he has the video on his channel, and the transcript has been generated, and I searched and I could not find any instance of that. I couldn't find anywhere where she says the word game changer. But as I was searching, I also searched the word dead, and there was a section where, so somebody else had made a comment the day before this happened, Wendy was talking to her kids about death, but what she says in the clip is, just yesterday, for the first time, I had to talk about God with the kids, and one of them had said something about, oh, I fall down, I'm dead, and she was commenting about how, oh, one of them thinks it's I don't know, something like a guy in the sky, or it's not, and then, oh, another one said, God is dead. She did that. I'm like, what a fucking freak she is. And Jeffrey Lacasse was talking about how she was crying on and off in these weird moments for the first, for a couple weeks or so before the murder happened, that he observed that she was crying in these random moments without provocation that he was aware of, and when he would question her, she was wouldn't respond. So, oh, and then after that awkward yoga date, she then says she doesn't want to see him all week, then asks, where are you going to be on Friday? Are you still going away on Friday? And then when she gets home, she emails him not to break up, but can I have another week of no contact? And then she testified last week or the week before in August of 2025 in Donna Adelson's trial. Well, I don't like confrontation, so I was breaking up without breaking up because, you like murdering somebody, hiring somebody to murder your ex-husband? Get somebody to do the dirty work for you. But anyway, what somebody else had pointed out, I think in that Judy AA Legal Focus video, was that perchance that was just another reason, another excuse for her to keep Jeff away from her apartment so that he wouldn't see that she was packing all the kids' stuff, her stuff, everything. And then there was another comment that somebody had made about maybe part of why she insisted on Jeff and the kids watching the movie on the broken TV in the living room. And, Jeff said that, I think the kids had said, yeah, let's go watch it in the bedroom. And she was like, no, we're going to watch it out here. And he said that, he didn't insist. He said he felt like it was a very sensitive position to be dating a single mom and her 2 kids, and then, and the boundaries and stuff. So he said that even though it seemed utterly ridiculous to be watching a movie on a busted TV, that's what she said she wanted, so that's what he did. But somebody had pointed out, maybe the bedroom door was closed, hiding all the boxes being packed. Maybe. Okay, so that was one thing. And she set up, so this is my opinion, my speculation warning. I believe that she set up her family to take the fall. I really do. I think that there's a part of her that hated her family and actually truly wanted to get away from them. I think that she wanted to get the fuck away from Tallahassee. She wanted to get the fuck away from Dan. She didn't feel like raising those kids the way he wanted to raise them. She knew that her family, who treated her like a princess, somebody, I think Judy was saying like how, you know, they never let her, or they didn't ever want her to drive from Tallahassee down by herself, and they would always drive up from from south, wherever they were, Spring Coral. They would drive, Donna and Harvey would drive, sometimes just Donna would drive. So now, hey, I don't like to drive that much, and I hate driving on the highway, so I ain't mad at it. But anyway, so that's what they would do. They would drive up and get her, and then drive down with the kids. And somebody had said they treated her like a baby, but I think what thought I had was, no, they're treating her like a princess. You know, it's not like they don't know that she's capable. It's just, why would they let her do that? So different than a baby, more like a princess. Like, doesn't matter how old you are, we want to just cater to you. And there was another thing which in the call, and I had used right before that quote, my last video, which I don't think I've shared yet publicly. I haven't shared publicly. It's just for members and Patreon for now. But the screen, the thumbnail is a screenshot of a section of a transcript of a call between Charlie and Donna, where Charlie is telling Donna about a party that Wendy is going to throw for her then boyfriend Dave, but Wendy didn't tell Donna about the party. Wendy had told Donna that she has to drive right from work to the hotel, and then she's like, oh, well, I guess she managed to squeeze something in between. Well, I'm happy, good for her. And then Charlie had said, Wendy's always very tight-lipped. And Donna said, yes, always tight-lipped for a reason, because she doesn't want you to know anything. But I thought that was an amazing quote. Even though they were talking about her love life, it applies to everything, in my opinion. And the next thing Charlie said was, well, it seems like she's finally growing a brain. Wendy's growing a brain. And Donna's like, yeah, finally growing a brain. So, on the one hand, treating her like a princess. Were they treating her like a baby? Or do they just think she's fucking stupid? Or she's incapable? Or what? So, I wonder, did she fucking hate them? She was like the ultimate narcissist. It's kind of funny when you think about her mother. Wendy's mother, Donna, helped pay and orchestrate a hit to kill Wendy's ex-husband, who Donna allegedly helped hook her up with in the first place from searching on JDate. They wanted a Jewish guy. They got a fucking Jewish guy. They were like, you bitch, you're too fucking Jewish. You dead. But how insane that, so Wendy's legacy is that her parents and brother helped, in my opinion, helped pay for a murder for hire plot to kill her ex-husband. And the legacy that she's leaving to her children. So her mom is a murderer and she's a murderer. And the legacy her kids get is that their mom paid people to have their own dad killed, so they could go to Miami instead of being raised in Tallahassee and back and forth between Canada and have to share with the other grandparents and the dad and the aunt and whatever other culture and beliefs, and have to share holidays, have to fucking share custody, have to share my children with their father and their family? I have to share my kids. Part of me hates it, to be honest. A part of me hates it because I selfishly want them with me all the time. But the much bigger part of me is like, well, good. I'm glad there's people who love them. I'm glad I have a father who, my baby's daddy, who's in their life. I'm glad that he pays child support. I'm glad that he has them every week. I know when he's coming. I know when he's bringing them back, and he's consistent. He's reliable. I'm glad that his mother and father loved them, and, you know, his dad died, was it 2 years ago? A year and a half ago? But was always there, and his mom is always there. I'm glad that there's people to give my kids love. And it sucks that they have to go spend they have to spend every Friday. They have to, but they love him. They love it. They enjoy it. You know, now that they're getting older and they're going to start having social life and maybe want to hang out on the weekends with their friends and stuff like that, you know, it's going to change. That's one of my kids playing music back there, by the way. But anyway, the point is, like, I mean, I love my ex. I love him as a person, as a human being, a very talented person, and creative artist and musician, and as the father of my children, and an old friend, somebody I've known since high school. And, you know, I will be devastated if and when the time comes that he's no longer here, if I'm still around. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow. And I mean, to be honest, I was living in California for several years, and one of the things that it occurred to me, because I had a friend at the time who, she was also from where I'm from, and she also moved out to California. I'm on the East Coast. I moved all the way 3,000 miles over, West Coast. And I saw she ended up being with a guy who got some lady pregnant, and the lady's family was in Florida, and she wanted to go back to Florida, and they weren't even a couple. And he said, no, I'm not going to let you go. And he took her to court, and he won. I mean, I said exacerbated because it was like, I don't know, the story was like, she hadn't even told the guy. It was like a one-night stand, and she hadn't even told him that she had a baby. And then she wanted to move him for some weird reason. She was like, let me tell the guy that he has a baby. By the way, we fucked 3 years ago, and I have a baby, and I'm taking her. Like, why would you do that? But anyway, because of that, I don't know if that's the whole story, because who knows if that was the truth. But anyway, I was like, I do not ever want that to happen. And it made me realize, like, I don't want to have a baby with somebody who lives in California, and then I don't want to live in California anymore, and he's going to be like, well, fuck you. This is where we are, and you can't just take my kid and leave. And then I'll be trapped. I know what happened to, I mean, I think my baby's daddy has a sister who had lived in San Francisco. I mean, she's probably been there for like 40 years at this point. You know, she didn't really get trapped in so much as she decided to live there, but there was a point in time where she moved out there, she got married, they had a baby. The guy isn't even from there, he's from the UK, but they got divorced, and he was like, well, this is where I live. I live in San Francisco, and so she kind of had to stay. I mean, like, again, I don't think she minded because that's where she wanted to be anyhow, but if she had wanted to come back here, it would have been a big problem, you know, if he fought her, which he would have had every right to do. My whole point is that, yes, it can be very stressful and upsetting if you have kids with somebody and then you start to build a life in a specific place, and then you break up and you don't want to be there anymore, but you have children and you have an obligation, and it sucks, and you might not like it, and you might not understand it, especially if the person, that parent isn't even from there. But if that's where they've established a life, and it's like, so they basically wanted Dan to be on the outskirts. You know, they wanted to diminish his role in every way possible, and he was like, what the fuck? Why would I do that? I want to uproot my children and go live down here in Miami, where your parents hate me, and they're saying bad things about me, saying I'm stupid, saying you hate me, I'm taking your sunshines away, and I'm supposed to uproot my whole life and go live down there to be near them, and then have to fly twice, 4 times to get to work. Like, no, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And you have to think twice. Type of grandmother, right. I think you'd have to think twice. Was one of the friends was testifying and was questioned about, you know, when they were planning to go to Vietnam, and he was like, well, they were definitely coming back for the bar mitzvah though. And Georgia Kappelman was like, what if you were going to be charged with murder? And he's like, well, you'd have to think twice. Yeah. Another thing is they were talking about what a fantastic grandma. She was like the best grandma. She's such a Jewish grandma. What about Rob's kids? Made me think of my own dad's, my dad's mom lived with my aunts. My aunt, so my dad has a sister, and his sister got married, and they had 2 kids, and those 2 kids are my cousins. And my dad and his mom had a falling out when I was a little bitty baby. So my whole life, like the last 20 years of my dad's mom's life, my grandma, my paternal grandma, I had 0 relationship. I think I saw her maybe 5 times at the most. One of those being her funeral, and another one in the hospital. Because they had a falling out and it was never repaired. So to me, she was a complete stranger. She was a nobody. Cruel, even, in a sense that she lived 30 minutes away and we didn't know her. My dad didn't want her around because of various things. That same grandma was the best grandma in the world. That's what my cousins told me. They loved her. She doted on them. They lived with her. Or she lived with them because she had a house, and then she got old, and then she moved in with them. My dad's sister, my aunt's husband was like best friends with the mom. You know, they thought she was the best grandma in the whole entire world. To me, she was nothing. My baby's daddy, his dad's mom, she had like 7 kids, and this is getting a little deep, but when my baby's daddy's dad was 4 years old, his biological father, so my kids' great-grandpa, ended himself, actually in a car, turned on in the garage kind of thing. When my children's grandpa on their dad's side, not the grandpa, their great-grandpa, when their grandpa was 4 years old, their great-grandpa ended it. And his mother resented him like forever for that, because she felt like that 4th child was too much, even though I heard that he had been working for her dad and was losing money, and she was riding him in a bad way, and, you know, whatever, I don't know. But so, anyway, so he was like the one child that she could never, like, forgive for existing, and so they always had an estranged relationship. And so my baby's daddy and his sister were like the 2 grandkids, the oddballs out, because their dad had like 6 other siblings, and all of those siblings had children, and all of those kids were all her grandkids. And the 2 that, so they said when they were at her funeral, or they were at, you know, their uncle's house, which was a mansion, and all the grandkids, I don't know how many there were, but like probably more than 10, they're all there, all grown up, and they're going around the room, and each grandkid is giving this amazing loving story about how great, you know, Nanny was, Granny, and him and his sister are looking at each other like, she was nothing to us. the whole point of that is that's who Donna was, apparently. Donna, this woman who was such an amazing grandma. I mean, not exactly. It's not exactly the same as, you know, my biological grandma. She wasn't a murderer, but she was very two-faced. She was one way with us and a whole nother other way with the other grandkids. My baby's daddy's grandma, same way. One way with them, a whole nother other way, a whole other different person with the other ones. And there you have Donna Adelson. To her grandkids, she was probably the best grandparent in the world, best grandma in the whole universe. They probably have nothing but wonderful memories of her. There are video calls, not video calls, there are phone calls, wiretaps of Donna on the phone with Charlie while they are talking about the bump and wondering about who's behind it, and call the number and you call the number and who's behind the number and what are we gonna do, and it's nothing. This is just not how it's done. This is just not how it's done. Don't worry, you're making a big deal of it. Oh my God, you don't want to see me tonight? Right. And you hear her, oh, Ben, honey. Oh, Ben, sweetie. Oh, Lincoln, honey. Oh, do this. You know, oh, I have to put Ben to bed. Oh, I got to go pick them up from school. Or they're having so much fun at McDonald's. All the while, bitch had their dad murdered so that she could do whatever she wanted with them. Not caring at all about the trauma of losing your parent, of having a dead dad, of never seeing your grandparents again, of not knowing why your dad is suddenly gone, dead and buried, when you're almost 5 and 3 years old, and suddenly everything in your life has changed. Your name has changed. Your dad is dead. Your names are changed. You suddenly moved to a new place. You have new school, new friends, new house, new everything. And all the loss of everything that they had known up till then. And one of those questions that the judge sustained the objection from the defense, and he told the jury, don't consider that last question and answer in your deliberations when the time comes to deliberate. And the question was Wendy wanting to know from Jeff Lacasse, from his expertise about psychology, how old are kids when they start to form solid memories? In other words, I hope my fucking kids will forget that that man ever even existed. They're young enough. We kill this man now. We stop talking about him. Change their names. Never let Dan's parents see him again. Why? People were like, why? That's so cruel. So cruel? Of course she was going to do that. What do you think? She's going to take a chance that the kids are going to be like, oh, we've been packing for a month. We've been knowing we were going to move. You know? Or what about anything? Anything that she may have done or said that they may have overheard. God knows what she was doing and saying in front of those children. We already know that the children had told Dan at least 3 different times, Grandma says you're stupid. Grandma says she hates you. Why? Because you're taking her sunshines away. So they certainly weren't too young to say some things. So you're going to tell me that you're going to do all that planning and logistics and moving and packing and throwing things out and all this stuff, and the kids aren't going to know? The kids aren't going to mention it? Also, why would she want to hold Dan's memory alive? Obviously, if she wanted to kill Dan, get rid of him, change their names, obliterate him from their lives, you're not going to keep the family there. Duh. If you're evil and you want to, cut every tie, sever everything, start fresh, act like, it was a sperm donor. You never knew who that dad was. Or you talk about him in this fantastical way, like, you can say nice things because it doesn't really fucking matter because he's dead and, he ain't never coming back around. make it sound like, you know, you're talking about nice things, but God knows she could be making everything up. Obviously, the real person is gone, and he's not being represented in any way. All right, the last comments I'm going to make are actually, I'm going back to this video. This is Judy. Judy on YouTube, AA Legal Focus. This video was posted, let's see, already a month ago? July 13th, 2025. It is called Top Reasons Why We Believe Wendy Adelson was involved in Dan Markel's murder. And so I made some comments. So here, one. While you're mentioning how little sympathy Wendy has for her kids in changing their names, because apparently they were traumatized when they went to school and they were suddenly being called different names. At least that's what somebody said. How do they know that? I have no idea. Is it true? I don't know. Sounds possible. So, you know, she didn't have any sympathy about that, but she also had no sympathy or no feelings about how they would feel about their dad being dead. Wendy keeping the kids from Dan's parents, to me, she didn't want them saying nice things about him. She wanted them to forget about him, which they never would by visiting his parents. Remember how Jeff mentioned she asked him how old kids are when they start forming solid memories. Plus, she likely was packing all week and didn't want them to talk about that, certainly. Then, regarding what time did she actually leave her house that day to head out? She said it was noon, but is there actual evidence? Like, was there a timestamp of like the last email she sent from the house or something? But how do you even know? Did she send it from the house? You know, you can Gmail from your phone. So anyway, my question was, is there any actual evidence of the exact actual time that she really left her house that morning to head out to drive by the crime scene? And what time did she get to Trescott? And again, like, some people are saying, no, she couldn't have been the one who was going to, like, check that it was happening. Like, they being Sigfredo Garcia and Luis Rivera had said something about, like, wasn't Wendy there the first time they were supposed to do it? And they were like, what the fuck is she doing there? And then supposedly maybe Katie McBanoa had said she's there because she wants to make sure it gets done. I don't know if that was proven or not. Again, you know, people could say shit, and I don't know. That part, I don't know if it's true, but it does seem to me that, you know, how do we know that she didn't leave her house the earliest that she could to head over there, just to be like on the road, just to be like nearby, you know? I don't know. I wouldn't put it past her. I wouldn't put it past her to drive, you know, to a street behind there so she could just sit and listen, wait for this gunshot. You know, who knows? I mean, I'm pure speculating, but what proof do we have of her actual route that morning exactly, and what time she left, and which way she actually went? Also, did they ever confirm that that Evite invitation to the party where she had to go buy the bullet bourbon was even real? Do they even know if she made a fake email and emailed herself an invitation asking for bullet bourbon just to make another alibi? Like, did they ever confirm that the owner of that email was the real person who actually was having a party, that they actually invited Wendy and they actually asked her to buy that specific thing? And again, something Judy had pointed out, why, if she was in a rush to go to lunch and she was all the way the fuck, like 10 minutes away from lunch, where her house was, she was like 10 or 15 minutes away from where she had to go have lunch with her friends at Mosaic, and she was supposedly in a rush. She left her house so quickly, she said she didn't even have time to shower. She was wearing that owl t-shirt, which I believe was an ode to the hitman who the night before had posted a picture of an owl as he sat in his car in the parking lot of the hotel that they were staying, the motel that they got to stay at overnight so they could wake up early and go do the murder. And he posted it on his Instagram, and then supposedly they was told to take it down, but she still had an owl shirt on, coincidence. And she didn't shower. Was she so anxious that she just, like, you know, she just had to get out of there. She had to have the repair guy there and hold him there. Supposedly she called her, excuse me. Supposedly she was on the phone with her brother Charlie for 18 minutes while the repair guy was there waiting for her. Like, that is crazy. It's one thing to have like a 2-minute conversation, but 18 minutes while the man is just standing there? Because what could he be doing? Staring at the broken screen? Like, am I going to take it off? Like, what the fuck does she expect me to do? Who replaces broken screens on $200 TVs now? Nobody. Like another person pointed out. Not to say you can't, not to say you couldn't have a repair person come to your house, have them remove the screen right there in your house. They're going to remove the screen and put it back on, or are they going to, like, why wouldn't you take, oh, this was another thing somebody pointed out. Why would they need Donna to call to make an appointment? Well, if Wendy had called herself, then they'd probably been like, what's wrong with the TV? And she'd be like, it's a big old crack in it. And they'd be like, what the fuck you want us to do? You come and buy a new one. Fuck. But by having Donna call, and I think that not only having Donna call, yes, it avoids the having to actually tell what's going on with the TV. But I feel like that appointment was it was just a code for 8 to 12 on Friday the 18th is your appointment. That's it. That's your appointment. That is when the murder is going to happen. At that time. And she knew, because she gave them his fucking schedule. So she knew exactly when he would be home. She knew exactly when she was supposed to be meeting up with him. So why wouldn't she? Wait a second. What about that? Hold on. She knows she's supposed to be meeting up with him to talk about the school thing. But instead of doing that, she's out running around. And she didn't say, I was driving to his house so we could talk. That would have made the most sense. I was driving to his house so we could go for a walk and talk about the school stuff. Why not just do that? Why not just say, I'm going to drive to meet you in your neighborhood, our old neighborhood. We can walk around the block or whatever and talk about the school thing. You know, some people say, oh, they think she wanted to be the one to find him. No, that makes you like the number one suspect. If you find a dead body, you become the number one suspect because you're the last person who fucking saw that person, supposedly. You know, you gotta prove that you're not. So why would she ever want to do that? But the fact that she already was driving there and shit, you know, she could have said, I was driving to meet him, but she wasn't. It's like I don't know. You were supposed to be meeting up with him to talk about the school stuff, but instead you're keeping a Geek Squad repair guy prisoner for an hour so he can look at your fake blue eyes and probably flirting with him and talking about weird, you know, assassination jokes. Ha ha. I don't know. It's very weird. Very, very weird. Why are you driving to pick up crazy glue for your kid's toy? And you're stopping to get gas, which you probably wouldn't have needed if you hadn't driven 5 minutes out of the way. You know? And again, the party is not until later that night or like Saturday, or even if it was that night, why wouldn't you buy it after your lunch? That was another thing. Why are you rushing around doing all these fucking stupid errands when you're late, so late for lunch that you couldn't even take a shower, you stink ass bitch? It just makes no sense. All of that, to me, it's like a contrived, incredibly contrived route so that you can go drive past the scene of the crime and then come up with this flimsy, transparent, absolutely ridiculous alibi trip that makes absolutely no sense. to anyone, I think, except for Wendy sycophants, which there are many. And apparently many of those sycophants are still the people in power who have the power to do something to fucking arrest this bitch. But Donna's trial is winding down. I imagine that by the end of this week, they'll at the bare minimum be in deliberation, if not already with a verdict. And I'd like to hope and pray and dream that when that guilty verdict comes, they're on their way to pick up Wendy. That's what I really hope. Maybe they'll just get Wendy and Harvey at the same time. At this point, why keep fucking around? How many fucking times are you going to make people go through this? But I don't know. Last comment that I had written was, how is she part of the plan? How is Wendy part of the plan? Back to the first point. She is the one who benefited the most. She was the one who moved 8 hours away from where she didn't want to be to where she wanted to be. Into a oh, and that was another thing. They said Judy was talking about how, you know, they got the Continuum condo across the street from the school where the kids ended up going. And there's obviously going to be paperwork, emails, some kind of phone trail, text trail, something that they had been making these plans way before when they should have been knowing that she was going to be moving there. And likely that wasn't the only thing. It wasn't the only... When did they reach out to the school to register the kids? Was it after he was dead or before? What else did they reach out to get prepared? Did she have a P.O. box? When did she do a change of address form? When did she change her address on her credit cards and all those things? When did she start forwarding her mail? When did she cancel her cable? Like she had a note 2 weeks before while she was pinging in the Continuum in South Miami and being put on that condo as a resident in May, a month before the murder, 2 months before the murder. Oh, it was just for convenience. I bet it was. It's also called premeditation. Oh, I gotta finish reading the comment. She's the one who didn't have to pay back all the money she stole. She's the one that got to raise her kids the way she wanted to and didn't have to raise them the way she didn't want to. She's the one that benefited in all the many, 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 many millions of ways that she's part of the plan because she was the one who benefited the most. All right, we'll see.
GetLoveDreamingBeach.com.
A couple of more points to make. I already turned off my light. Let's see. Oh. Turn it back on. So, let's see. The last couple of points I wanted to make before I close out this video. And let's see. I had made some last minute notes to myself late last night. Right. Regarding how Donna would get to Tallahassee to pick up Wendy. Her friend, Donna's friend, had testified that sometimes Donna would fly to Tallahassee and then they would drive back. Or sometimes Donna would rent a car. So she wasn't putting the mileage on their car, and then they would drive back in Wendy's car. So I just wanted to mention that maybe in her mind, Donna's mind and Wendy's mind, well, I can fly up and do this, so why can't you, Dan? Probably why not? Because he didn't want to, and why should he have to? And then the next note that I made was, what about Rob's kids? So when I was talking about how, you know, my own grandma on my dad's side was completely absent, not a grandma to us, had, you know, no relationship with me, my sister and my brother, and yet my aunt's kids, my first cousins, they think that she was the best grandma in the entire universe. And So let me scooch this down. So I had just talked about that in this video, how, you know, the same person to one grandchild could be the best grandma in the whole universe, and to another grandchild, the same grandma, another grandchild. So in Donna's case, Wendy's kids probably at the time thought she was the best grandma ever, where Rob's kids, her oldest son's children, who are also her grandchildren, probably has zero relationship with her, or a very, very, very different one, especially when you consider that Donna didn't like Rob's Indian wife, and in fact broke him up from her, got him to marry a Jewish girl, which he was miserable with, who he divorced, and then went back to the girlfriend that his mom made him break up with, and went on and married her. Lucky for him, she was still around and gave him another chance, instead of saying, what the fuck? You literally broke up with me and married a fucking bitch, a Jewish bitch, just to make your mom happy. But she gave him the chance. They got married. Donna and Harvey and Wendy were even at the wedding, acting fake as fuck, as usual. But I just wanted to point out that, you know, his kids probably have a complete 180 opposite view of her, Donna Adelson, as a grandma compared to Rob's kids. And speaking of that, what I really, really want to know is what I want to know is, what did Wendy's kids think of Donna before she got arrested? And what did they think after she got arrested? And what do they think now? Are they watching the trial? It's literally streaming on YouTube for free. I mean, they are 16 and 14. Almost the same exact ages as my children. My children are smart as fuck. They can find stuff, they can search stuff, and they do. And they know things that I don't know. And they search for stuff. So maybe, like, that's another thing. I wish desperately to know, what the fuck has Wendy been telling those kids all these years? My own biological mother, who had abused my sister and I, and then abandoned us after, well, I was almost 5. So the first 5 years of my life, she was horrifically abusive. She was just a terrible, unfit, abusive person. And my sister was like almost 8. And so when I was a month away from turning 5, my biological mother abandoned my sister and I to a foster home where we were abused and neglected, and for 3 weeks. And then my dad, finally, one of my biological mother's friends, and the man who was not my father, who my biological mother had lied to both me and that man that he was my father, my biological mother's friend, and separately that man, and I only learned about this shit like less than a year ago. My mom told me. They went to my dad and mom, my dad's, new wife, second wife. I mean, she wasn't that new because they got married when I was 3. And at this point it was almost, 2 years later. And so the story was that we disappeared. My biological mother put us in a foster home and only told her best friend and the guy who was not my dad, that she lied and said was my dad. And then when my dad came pick us up for the weekend and we weren't there, they were frantically trying to find us, and they called her friend, and they, also spoke to that guy who was not my dad, who thought he was my dad. And they both said, we don't know where she is. And then 3 weeks later, they both independently went to my parents to say, actually, I thought she would be back by now. I do know where she is. And so they found out the foster home that we had been put in, that they had no idea we were there or anything like that. And they came to the foster home. My dad, showed the proof that he's our father. He's not dead, like she's lied and said. My biological mother had told the foster home that our dad was dead, and they didn't do any research to find out if that was true. And so when he showed up saying, I'm not dead, I'm fucking here, these are my kids, I'm taking them with me now, they had no choice but to relinquish us. And then my biological mother, at some point, like 2 years later, she tried to get custody, didn't work. And ultimately, I've been no contact with her since, like, almost my whole life. But, let's see. Anyway, there was a handful of, it was like 2 or 3 times that I did see her, the last time being when I was 17. The point that I'm getting at was that many years later, when I was like 45, I reached out to my biological mother's sister's children, who technically are my biological cousins, but I've never met them. And like, they are probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 years younger than my sister and I. So they never met us. We were long gone when they were born. And what I found out through them was that what they were told by my biological mother, their aunt, was that me and my sister disappeared when we were young. What the fuck? I just fucking yanked my sign. For fuck's sake. I fucking ran over the wire. See this plug? This plug, I fucking rolled over it with my goddamn chair, which is fucking broken. The arm of this chair is broken, which you cannot see. Let's see. Oops, excuse the big ass hand. Let's see. This arm, you can barely see it. Oh. Frustrating as fuck. So the arm of my chair broke. I've been like, my back has been hurting for fucking weeks because I bought this chair less than a year ago, and it's been fucking just, it's awkward. It's just awkward. Like, it doesn't exactly feel right. I've never exactly been able to get it right. I have a big pillow on it, a big huge pillow behind it. I've been struggling with pillows. Anyway, I'm getting a new chair next week. It's in the mail. It's on its way. So, sorry for that distraction. The point that I was getting at was that my biological mother completely lied to her niece and nephew, saying that her children disappeared. Like, I don't even know what else she told them, because, like, if you tell somebody your children disappeared, it's like, well, did you do a search for them? Is there a missing child report? Like, I don't know. That's what they were told. Both the niece and nephew were told their whole lives that their aunt had 2 daughters that had disappeared when we were little. And and then the fucking audacity of the cousin, the boy, I guess he's a man, he had written to me a while ago talking about some shit. Your biological mom, he said, your mom is just this nice lady, and I don't know what your father told you about her, but she's so nice, you should just give her a chance. Oh my God, like, I unleashed 70 pages of fucking history, truth, reality bites you in the fucking balls, motherfucker, because what the fuck are you talking about? I fucking experienced so much pain and abuse and suffering before you were even fucking born. Before you were even born,
I was standing in court as a 12-year-old girl telling that fucking woman to her face, I have a mother and it's not you. And I don't need you in my life. You are abusive and I don't ever want to see you or speak to you again. And the judge trying to plead with my sister and I, please, please, please have a little bit of sympathy for this fucking woman. At least let her call you. Which immediately became her bad-mouthing my dad. And very quickly we were like, my sister started saying, I'm not answering that call. I'm not taking the call. And like a week or two later, I was like, well, I'm not going to talk to you either. And sometimes she would call at the appointed time on that number and nobody would pick it up. But the point that I'm getting at is that from her side, what she told about us was lies. Absolute fucking lies. To make her look good, to make her look like a victim, to garner sympathy, and to make my father look like a monster when he was actually protecting us from the monster that had abused us for many, many years. The first 5 years of my life were so abusive that I am still, to this day, every day I deal and work on healing from the trauma. And every relationship that I've ever had and not had is impacted by the trauma that fucking horrific evil woman perpetrated upon me. And to know that she's out there lying about she was the victim who had her children ripped away and disappeared from her. And then she had married some other guy after my dad, after she got rid of us, after she had a restraining order and was not supposed to stalk our school, stalk our after school program, stalk our house, and she did all of those. And she told me many years later, many, like that one time when I got that letter, I had reached out to the cousins just to say, you know what, I just want to let her know that although everything she ever said probably was a lie, anything she ever will say would be a lie, I don't ever want to see her nor have any relationship with her. I still just had this desire to just let her know I don't despise you anymore. And in that communication, that was, when I reached out to my cousins, I guess, and was like, do you have an aunt by this name? And they were like, oh yeah, we knew that she had some kids that disappeared. So her version of the story is that our father somehow disappeared at us and then brainwashed us against her by lying to us, when the reality was she was abusive, neglectful, just awful, horrible, evil, cruel, vindictive person who put us in harm's way for years and then lied about our father being dead so she could dump us in a foster home and go off and do God knows what. And then when my dad and my mom got custody of us, it was like 2 years later, and she was like, oh yeah, maybe go see if I can get those kids back, because I sure did enjoy that child support money I was getting from the state, which is what she testified to when they said, why do you want the custody of the kids? She said, for the child support. Shocking, she didn't win. She was granted supervised visitation rights only, which she only came to a handful of times and then stopped showing up. So my dad stopped showing up. My whole point about this whole sob personal story is that I fucking really wonder what Wendy's been telling her children, because Dan has been dead. Dan's family out of the picture. She has obliterated them from their lives. She changed their names, including the middle name of one of the kids, which was a middle name to honor Dan's somebody. Took them to 8 hours away. Took them to South Florida, out of Tallahassee, where they were living. Completely new lives. And she had nobody, not one single person in their lives to tell them the truth, to speak kindly about Dan, to keep his memory alive, to show them pictures, to, connect them to his roots, his parents, his aunt, his sister, their aunt, Canada, where he's from, all of the things completely deleted from their lives. And I wonder what the fuck Wendy and Donna and Harvey and Charlie were saying all those years about Dan, his parents, his sister, his death. And, what do they think? What do they believe? When you've been told something since you were practically a baby, and that's all you know, sometimes it's so deeply ingrained in who you are and the cells of your being, it's very hard to unravel that and to realize that the truth is much more sinister. So like when I responded to my biological mother's nephew, and said, "You what? Motherfucker, you think what? That fucking bitch, you have the fucking audacity to come to me and say you don't know what my father told me? She's a nice lady. Fuck you, fucking scumbag. I lived with her firsthand. You don't know shit except lies." And I fucking schooled him on the whole shebang. And then, never heard back from him. And I also, for good measure, CC'd the sister on my fucking response. And I heard back from her, only for her to tell me, "Oh, I'm so sorry that that's what you went through. And by the way, I have cut off all contact with my brother, my mother, and my biological mother, her aunt." And she wouldn't tell me why. And I didn't ask. And actually, she sent me an email like a month or so ago where I said, she said she thinks about me and my sister sometimes. And I was like, well, to be honest, it's very difficult for me to think about anybody connected to my biological mother, including them, without fucking nausea and pain and suffering and triggered. So I said, if you want to email me, I'll read whatever you have to say. If you want to share what all happened to you, I'll read it. She never responded. But again, trauma is not an easy thing to navigate. When I realized at 45 that I actually definitely had been essayed, it was a good 4 or 5 years of funk before I came up for air to start to actually process it. So, yeah, those are my personal thoughts. And I don't know, I just feel so bad for those children because they were robbed of their dad. They were robbed of their grandparents. And, they probably don't have any relationship with their Uncle Rob, the only good one. And, they probably were brainwashed about a hell of a lot of lies about how she was talking about how he was so abusive, he was this, he was that. She was saying the craziest shit about Dan, and I believe that they were all lies. So God knows what. God knows what they think about him, about their father, about their grandparents, about their mom. So other day I'm popping in because I am driving back from bringing my kids to school for the first day of school this year, 2025, and just thinking about a couple of comments that, so I saw a comment where somebody had said about Dan, well, what I learned about in this trial was that Dan was a real nightmare to divorce, basically blaming the victim. So I said, yeah, you're right. His ex-wife, ex-brother-in-law, ex-mother-in-law, ex-father-in-law all hired people to murder him, stole his money, essentially kidnapped his children, but he was the problem. It was on him. And, you know, it seems as if some people have completely taken the side that the defense put out, that, you know, Dan was the problem in the divorce. Dan was the one who was being so litigious. Dan was the one who was causing these problems. And another comment was like, you know, Dan was so unhappy about getting divorced. He didn't want to get divorced. Again, according to Wendy. According to Wendy, Dan was so miserable because she wanted to leave him. And so he was taking her to court over and over because of that. But what it seems like is that she left him, he accepted it, came to an agreement, and then he found out that she had breached that agreement by hiding and lying about her assets, and he had said that she took a bunch of marital assets. She took things that were not hers, that were his, that were not marital assets. So Wendy's lawyers claimed that his case had no merit. They claimed that his filings were aggressive personal attacks. So Wendy's lawyers claiming that Dan's filings had no merit, according to them. You know what's really interesting and sad and horrific? Is that we'll never know. Dan's filings never got to be considered. There was no judge who could judge whether his filings had merit or not. In order for him to prove that there was actual fraud, he would have had to go to court. But instead, he was murdered. So they're on the stand claiming that he had no merit. His filings were garbage. But yet he was fucking murdered so that they would never find out the truth of what was behind his filings. Is that what you believe? I don't. Not for a hot second. I think I said in this video that it made me think a lot about Charles Vallow. How Charles Vallow was telling people, I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but I do think he was saying that he thought Lori was trying to kill him. Or, you know, there was something was wrong, and nobody believed him. People thought that he was just being crazy. You know, what's your fucking problem, Charles? What's your fucking problem, Charles? Is that his ex-wife was trying to have him murdered, and she succeeded. So, again, back to Dan Markel, it's like, wait, you want to blame him for trying to do things in a legal way? So the fact that he's a lawyer and he wanted to take her to court to deal with these legal issues that she was creating, that's the problem in your mind to these people. Not the person who had her husband served divorce papers minutes before he was getting on a stage to speak at a conference, and according to the paperwork, specifically timed it at that moment for maximum pain and humiliation. Then while he's out of town at this conference in New York, she moves out, gets all of the stuff, the kids' furniture, so much stuff, takes it all out of the house, moves with the children to somewhere he doesn't even know, an undisclosed location. Apparently, she kept the kids from him for 2 weeks. He didn't even know where his children were. Then he finds out how she's been stealing money. Then at the same time, you've got her mother disparaging him to his own babies, saying he's stupid, saying she hates him, saying
you know, he's taking my sunshines away, which very creepily, the lady at the jail, the jailhouse daughter, Joanna Bird or whatever her name was, she testified that Donna called her my sunshine, which was incredibly creepy to me. And I wasn't clear, if it wasn't clear to me, if Donna targeted these two women who she knew had prior contact with Katie McBanois, and so she was targeting them, manipulating them, knowing these women have had contact with Katie. I am going to manipulate them, get them to like me, offer them gifts and money, and then she literally wrote a script for Joanna to recite, claiming Katie was the mastermind of all of it, and ha ha ha, Charlie was so easy to extort, what a fool. That's what she wanted that lady to say, that Katie told her, and she said, that's not what Katie told me. Donna's lying. Donna wanted me to lie. Okay, wait, this lady on the bike. So, yeah, you know, it's nowhere near as bad as Karen Reed, where it was like 80% of people in the comments were so pro Karen Reed, which I to this day, I cannot understand. I will never get over the fact that she got away with murder, and that the astroturfing campaign that they paid for actually worked. They got away with it. And, you know, yeah, there's some Wendi sycophants, including Tim Jansen, who's a lawyer who's often on STS, Surviving the Survivor. And, damn, I always fucking, I hate when they park right where I want to park. Alright, let me go park over here in the shade. You know, Tim is always talking about, you know, oh, Wendi won't get arrested. Wendi won't get arrested. There's no evidence against Wendi. And then I heard him yesterday talking about how she might get arrested, which I think he's just doing because there's probably such a strong wave of people calling out for her arrest that, you know, he's just playing to the crowd, I guess you could say. But ultimately, you know, from what I gathered, he would love to represent Wendi and try to get her off for the murder of her ex-husband. What a creep, you know. So today is likely the last day of Donna Adelson's trial. They're going to be reading the jury instructions, and then the closing arguments, and then they get to deliberate. I kind of had a feeling that the closing arguments and the jury instructions are going to take all day, and that by the time it's all done, it'll be time to go home. But who knows? We'll see if they actually get to deliberate today. Charlie's jury apparently took 3 hours, and supposedly that included them having lunch. So my main issue at this point is just anxiously waiting to find out if Wendi Adelson will actually get arrested or not. They said Donna was arrested a week after Charlie's conviction. She was arrested at the airport, literally trying to board a plane to go to Vietnam. And that's when she was arrested. So is Wendi going to try to flee? I feel like she should, you know, but most likely she won't, and they'll nab her. Or she'll learn from her brother and her mother's mistakes, and she'll slip the fuck out. And they'll be like,
knock, knock, poof, she's gone. Of course, that would be horrific. And I really hope that she gets arrested. I feel like that would finally be some level of justice happening. But we'll see. What I'm hoping more than anything is that Georgia Kappelman, Sarah Catherine Dugan, Patrick Sanford, Jack, what's his name? Jack Campbell, the Tallahassee Police Department, that they are gearing up for another new inmate by the name of Wendi with an I, because she's a fucking lie, a lying ass bitch. And this time, and we out.
CatLoveDreamingBeach.com.